and welcome into this crossover edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast and the Locked On Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast and Locked On Predators podcast your first listen of the day. For everyone on the Nashville Predators feed, let me introduce myself. My name is Armando Velez. I'm from PantherParkway.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter as well at LO_FLA Panthers. And have the pleasure to bring into this crossover edition of Locked On Panthers and Locked On Predators is one of the co-hosts of Locked On Predators, Ann Kimmel. Ann, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing great. I'm excited to be here. This is going to be a great matchup to talk about.
And before we talk about that matchup, I want to give you a lot of praise because for anyone who listening on Locked On Panthers who has not heard Ann Kimmel's coverage of the Olympics, go listen to Monday's episode for one last time to listen to Olympic Hockey Daily. I want to congratulate you, Rachel and Erica Ayala, who was all the way over there in Beijing, about what what you guys have done in the last 2.5-3 weeks, and I want to give you a lot of praise. So
Thank you.
I bet you were super tired, like we talked about before recording.
I really wish that these games had been on more friendly central time terms for sure. But it was really fun. It was a lot. It was a lot of work and it was a lot of hockey. But you know what? I learned you just almost can't get hockeyed out. It was really great. So thanks for listening. It was really fun.
That's awesome, and definitely I wanted to give you that shout out.
Mm.
But we have a game to talk about on Tuesday night between the Florida Panthers and the Nashville Predators, and it's also kind of strange because I got and a lot of the Florida Panthers fans, and along with Nashville Predators fans as well, got a lot of the Nashville Predators last season. The season
Yes.
series did go 5-2-1 in favor of the Panthers last year, but how it how weird is it to you that these teams faced off against each other so many times, and then it's like, wow, now we don't face off against each other until now, February, even though it was supposed to be before the postponements.
Yeah, it's been really weird. I think we got into such a groove with the modified divisions and schedule last season where we were seeing you guys a lot. We were seeing Carolina a lot. And it's been an adjustment to go back to wait a minute now, who are the real rivals? Because I have to tell you, last season really kind of stirred something when it comes to the Florida Panthers here in Nashville. So it was I mean, we had a rough time handling y'all last season that many times. And it's going to be interesting to see how much of that energy and emotion sort of carries over into the game between the teams tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the Panthers, they got off to a rough start against Nashville. A win that happened for Nashville in the first one. It was a coach's challenge that the Florida Panthers lost. The Preds ended up tying the game after a penalty of losing a challenge, and then too many man on the ice that the Florida Panthers thought happened was not. I remember one of them, Nola Chari, got a hat trick. One of them, Chris Drieger, comes in and gets a shutout, and one of
Oh,
them was Spencer Knight coming in as well for Sergei Bobrovsky in that final one to clinch a playoff spot. So some memorable games on the Florida
yeah.
Panthers end and not so memorable ones. But for this one tonight, for the Nashville Predators, I want to talk to you about, because there was a time when a lot of the other teams that when they were trying to make up their games in hand, people were starting to see the Nashville Predators really climb up into the standings in the Central Division. Where are you at as far as this team's chances as a right now a bubble playoff team in the Western Conference?
You know, it's funny. This has been a season that has had seasons in it. Nashville at one point was as high as second in the standings, right behind Colorado, who seems that they have just nested in that top spot and are going to be tough to unseed. But Nashville really has had some play that has been really strong. They've gone on some great runs. And then now all of the sudden we find ourselves on a 4-game losing streak, which is definitely not ideal when you're headed to Florida to play the Panthers. This is not ideal timing for Nashville. Currently, we are 4th in a really tough Central Division. We're behind the Avalanche, Minnesota, the St. Louis Blues, and then we're sitting right there. And we have Dallas breathing down our neck. We only have 4 points on Dallas. So what was comfortable a few weeks ago suddenly feels very uncomfortable in Nashville. And our upcoming schedule, like I said, playing the Panthers, doesn't do us a lot of favors when it comes to the standings in the Central Division.
Yeah, and I was talking to you right before we hit record how Nashville coming out of the break, you talked about a 4-game losing streak for them. I'm looking at it right in front of me. The hockey players are creatures of habit.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're not playing every other day, I mean, if you ask the players on the Predators, they're not going to make any excuses. You have to go out and play. But I will make the excuses for them. I don't like the amount of 2-day off gaps that the Nashville Predators are having. And right now, between the game against Carolina and even this game against Florida, it's a 3-game gap. What
Yes.
do you think that that right now the Predators are having a hard time with getting back into a routine?
I think that there is an element of that. I think the All-Star break interrupted something for Nashville. They really had something good kind of brewing there, and then they had this long period off. And of course, you need that time to recharge. The last half of the season is grueling, but the Predators just have struggled to find their groove again. Players who are usually just solid, like Roman Yossi, he's had a couple of games that have been a little bit shaky since the All-Star break. And like you said, they've had these gaps in between games. And while you can spin that this is really good, we get extra rest, extra practice, I think it has maybe thrown them off a little bit. And that could be part of why we're seeing such a struggle for them to find a consistent game again.
Mhm. Yeah, and hockey players, even when especially when they lose, the one thing they want to
Oof.
do immediately is get right back on the ice, and they're hungry to definitely play again. So that's a big factor. So last season, I remember that Matthias Ekholm was rumored to possibly be traded. He gets an extension. Team looks like a team friendly extension based on what I'm seeing on Cap Friendly. Just a not a long term deal at 6.25. And now the Nashville Predators are headed into another situation where they're trying to see whether they're buyers or sellers at the
Mhm.
deadline. And now Philip Forsberg, the
Oof.
leading goal scorer for the Nashville Predators, he has a new contract coming up. What is the status of the extension talks possibly for Philip Forsberg?
So, General Manager David Poyle really has been open about the fact that he wants to get something done with Philip Forsberg. He said that just recently. He said that he is ready to sit back down again and do some more talking. Everyone here in Nashville wants to re-sign Forsberg. I think if this team loses Philip Forsberg, it's going to look very different for the next, 2 to 3 years here in Nashville because he's such a key part of their success. So I think the hope is they're going to get something done and get something done quick because I think a lot of other decisions that may happen before the trade deadline are contingent on signing Philip Forsberg. So I'm going to be honest with you. I think a lot of fans in Nashville wake up every day and think, okay, is this the day? Is this the day they announce they've signed him? We're still waiting.
Mhm. One thing that these two teams have in common is goalie depth in their in
Yes.
their in their system. And like the Florida Panthers have that with Bobrovsky, Knight, and even this one recent signing in Max Guzda, who was a goaltender of the
Yeah.
week in the OHL. But for the Predators, UC Saros, what a story for him being a fourth
Yeah.
round pick, an undersized goalie, and has really helped this Nashville Predator get to where this team is. And of course, they have someone waiting in the wings in Yaroslav Askarov, who they just drafted 2 drafts ago. How exciting is it, especially now that Pekka Rinne is out of the picture, and what this can be for the Nashville Predators?
It was a little bit nerve-wracking about a few, maybe 2 years ago when you looked at goaltending because we knew it was sort of the twilight of Pekka Rinne. And of course, UC Saros was the heir apparent. But I don't think anybody anticipated just how fortunate we were going to be and how well he would step into those big shoes. UC Saros is having an incredible season. He is so rock solid in net. And even though people talk about, his size, he's a little smaller than your prototypical NHL goalie. He really has played so well. He's been, in and around, danced around the Vezina conversation. I'm not sure he's going to be a finalist for that, but, really has played exceptionally well. There's a lot of enthusiasm in Nashville about Askarov for sure. Everybody keeps their eye on what's going on with his games. And we also have Connor Ingram in Milwaukee. And Connor Ingram is just really having a phenomenal season in Milwaukee. The Admirals started off pretty rough this season, but they finally kind of are getting it together. And a large key for that is Connor Ingram. So I think the nerves of losing Pekka Rinne, I think everybody is kind of breathing a sigh of relief because we can see, we've got some really good goaltenders in the pipeline and things are looking pretty bright for goaltending here in Nashville.
Yeah, and just to read the numbers of UC Saros this season, 249 goals against average, 923 save percentage, and 2 shutouts. And you talked about Connor Ingram as well for Milwaukee, 920 save percentage and 2.6 goals against average down in Milwaukee in 35 games. So goaltending is going to definitely be something that is exciting for this Nashville Predators team going forward. But we are going to flip the script in the next segment where Ann is going to put me on the spot and talk about the Florida Panthers. But first, we want to tell you all about BetOnline. And football might be over this season, but basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fire coach is going to land, betonline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds, right to the Olympic coverage and information. Head to the website today and use your mobile device to learn about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. And welcome back to this crossover edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast and Locked On Nashville Predators podcast. I'm Armando Velez. I have Ann Kimmel with me. So now we're going to flip the script where Ann is going to ask me some Florida Panthers related questions.
Oh, I have questions. So Florida Panthers right now, in pretty much any power ranking you see, very comfortably camped at number 1, 35, 10, and 5. What is going right in Florida? What's the secret? And I guess a better question is, how surprised are you by how well this season's going for Florida?
I'll start with the second question.
Okay.
First. I'm surprised they're near the top of the NHL. I'm not surprised that they're top 10, even top 5. But as far as 1 point off the lead for the President's Trophy, which Colorado just lost today to Boston. So now I believe it's a game separated, and I don't know the games in hand on the top of my head for Colorado, but it's amazing how the Florida Panthers are in this race for the President's Trophy. But what's going right is the fact that you have more than just 2 lines now for the Panthers, and Anton Lundell coming into the mix as well, coming over from Liga and manning that third line center. Mason Marshman, who nobody knew who this guy was just 2 years ago, spent a little bit of time in Toronto. The former GM of the Florida Panthers, Dale Talon, he made that trade right at the trade deadline for Dennis Malgin. Nobody knew who he was. And he's been someone who's just been an energy boost for this Florida Panthers team. On the defensive end, he's one of the forwards that you see him creating hit after hit for the Panthers on the defensive end. And that whole third line is really been the secondary scoring for this Florida Panthers team has really taken them
Yeah.
over the top. And I haven't even gotten to the top 6 of the Panthers. And for the secondary scoring and the bottom 6, I want to give also a special shout out to Sam Reinhart, who Bill Zito traded a first round pick to Buffalo for Sam Reinhart, and he's averaging a point per game for the Panthers on the third line. And Jonathan Huberdeau's kicked it to another gear. He's added penalty
Yes.
killing to his arsenal. Just 1 point off the NHL points lead right now. Barkov, even though he's missed a little bit of this season, he's definitely been the goal scorer that we've always known him to be. And Sergei Bobrovsky, the first 2 seasons were rough for him.
Mm-hmm.
The defense wasn't the best neither, but the defense got better, and so did Bobrovsky. And Mike Kelly of NHL Network joined David Dwork's Odd Man Rush show and talked about something that we've talked about in Florida Panthers circles, is that even though Bobrovsky doesn't have a good playoff record and he's not Vezina caliber Bob, that he doesn't need to be. He just needs to make those great saves at the good time. And it's crazy. You'll see 2 goals each game. Some of those goals, you could argue that Bob could have had a shutout. You could have like had only 1 goal. But when you're scoring at the rate that the Florida Panthers are number 1 in the league now in average goals per
Yes.
game, 31 games of 50 that they've scored 4 or more,
Yes.
Bob has been able to relax a little bit, but not relax all at the same time, if that makes any sense at all. But Bobrovsky has been like flying a little bit under the radar on how great he has been this season and coming up with those timely saves.
Mm-hmm. So, what would you say is the top storyline for Florida this year? Is it secondary scoring? What would you say really is the main story coming out of Florida? Is there one player?
I think it's the coach. I really do believe it's the coach that is the storyline, because they went through a difficult situation with Coach Q having to resign after everything that
Yes.
happened with Kyle Beach up in Chicago, and this team could have easily crumbled after
Yes.
that situation. Of course, they started off 7-0, and now Andrew Burnett is now 28-10-5. I talked about it on the national show, and I talked about it on yesterday's show about Andrew Burnett having having dealt a great hand and having this, but any coach and eh, this team could have crumbled easily. And even though
Yes.
Joe and the leadership as well on this team, I know Joe Thornton doesn't play every single night for the Panthers. Patrick Hornquist has been in and out because of injuries and
Hmm.
COVID and all that too. But those veteran leaderships of off the ice have helped it on the ice as well. And the talent of the core 3 of Barkov, Huberdeau, and Ekblad has always been there. And now adding those complementary pieces on them, they got Sam Bennett in the last trade deadline, and then getting Sam Reinhart on draft night, a trade that happened past midnight after the first round that kept Florida Panther fans up late, seeing what kind of player was coming to this team, and just buying into what Bill Zito was selling. And people, I don't think people realize, even though Coach Q isn't here anymore,
Hmm.
how much of his emotional presence and aura is still kind of here in South Florida on what he was able to build here. And Andrew Burnett has just been able to definitely take it and run with it. It wasn't pretty at first. And
Hmm.
a lot of the losses, especially on the road, were a lot of fans scratched their heads. A lot of the Panthers before resuming play after the Olympic break, they only had 1 win, where when the opposition scores first on the road, that they would
Hmm.
come out with a win, and that was a shootout win.
Oh,
They
wow.
got they got 2 in their first 2 coming back out of the break. So they've learned how to come from behind more on the road. I mean, they've only lost 3 at home. I know this is a home game coming up on Tuesday,
Yeah.
but it's been what they've done after these breaks, the Christmas break. they've come out firing. They had the Olympic break, they got healthier and firing. And I
Mhm.
said on the national show that winning in sports comes with a little bit of luck as well. And the Panthers' luck has been incredible and counting their lucky stars. And I'm not complaining about it. A lot of people aren't complaining about it. And I can admit that there has been some luck
Mhm.
in relation to that. And you got to take what you can get. I mean, I mean, we can relate this to Nashville Predators as well. Just in 2017, coming in as the ace seed and then
Yes.
making their run to the Stanley Cup final. A lot of luck bounced their way,
Absolutely.
and they took advantage of it. The LA Kings as well, coming out as an ace seed as well when they won the Stanley Cup as well.
Yep, absolutely. I can completely relate to that. And I think Nashville's having the opposite where some things are not bouncing their way. So we'll kind of see how things fall. Is there an area of weakness or concern with this team as you have been watching them?
Lately, it's been how they start off in the first period
Mhm.
with possession. Especially Sunday, where they only had 3 shots on goal, and against Chicago, but they got a goal. One of those shots was a goal. So,
It
it
works.
but it worked. But hey, it's really how they start off games, because if this happens in the playoffs, it could smell trouble for the Florida Panthers. And but hey, th- their third period, how they've done in the second and third periods as of late, as in but I also believe this is the first time I'm using this in words in the podcast. I feel like it's pace of what they're doing. I feel like it's
Mhm.
kind of a little bit of a pace, but I don't want it to be that they're just taking a step back. I want it to see more as they're pacing themselves throughout the game, conserving their energy as they go through the game, because it's a long game. It's a 60-minute
Yeah.
game. So you gotta not put all your energy, or else you're gonna tire yourself out. And also going back to Andrew Burnett, how he's been learning how to manage those minutes even better. And Sunday was a big game for how he's managed time on ice for the Panthers.
Mhm. So looking ahead to March 21st trade deadline, what do you anticipate Florida doing, or do you think there will be a lot of movement, no movement, buyers, sellers? What do you see them doing?
I don't see a huge splash for
Mhm.
the Panthers, because I think the price tag for Jacob Chikrin is too steep
Mhm.
for them. But I do believe I will see like an intermediate type of move for the Panthers, because they don't have a first nor second in the upcoming draft. They gave those up to trade for two of the Sam Reinhart and Sam Bennett in
Mhm.
the last year. So I think you're looking at maybe trading like a third or fourth, a mid round pick for something, or a mid level prospect for someone. Um, the latest rumblings have been Mark Giordano, Hampus Lindholm
Yep.
as far as the defenseman, and as far as forwards, one has been Brandon Hagel of the Chicago Blackhawks, but I highly doubt that's happening, because I don't think the Chicago Blackhawks want to give up someone on a good contract and great term as well. And also a wild card in this one is Claude Giroux, who has a no
Yes.
movement clause from the Philadelphia Flyers. And all the rumblings I've heard of Claude Giroux, all I hear is Claude Giroux to the Avalanche. That's all I hear. So I think that's the most likely scenario. Right now, I think if I had to have a crystal ball, I think the guy
Mhm.
is going to end up being Mark Giordano. It could
Yeah.
change.
Yeah. Not a bad pick. Not a
Mhm.
bad pick. All right. Well, coming up, we need to talk predictions. I want you to tell me what Nashville has to do to win this game because I'm not sure we're going to figure it out on our own the way things are going lately.
Yeah, we'll definitely get that more in the next segment here on Locked On Panthers and Locked On Predators. And we are back here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast and the Locked On Nashville Predators podcast, as Ann teased in the second segment of the show. We talked about the season series last year and meeting for the first time in this one. So, what the Nashville Predators have to do in order to to beat the Panthers is
Oh,
they really got to get right in front of the net, right in front of the low slot in order to really challenge Bobrovsky, because in these last 3 games, the shots on goal on the defense, they've haven't allowed many attempts on
mhm.
Bobrovsky. They're doing a really good job in getting in the way of passing lanes and getting in front of the net so that Bobrovsky doesn't have to make a save. But like I said earlier, Bobrovsky, those few goals that he has given up, it's been a little questionable. If you look at the 2 goals in Chicago, it's a little bit of an eyebrow raiser, and just not allowing the Florida Panthers to go on rushes, because they lead the
Yes.
NHL in rush attempts for the NHL. So not allowing the Panthers to use their speed in order to beat. I'm going to assume it's UC Saros who's going to be
Yes.
starting on Tuesday. So just not allowing any rush chances and neutral zone turnovers. That's really the thing, because that's where they really make their money when it comes to going the other way. So that's really what it's going to take
Yeah.
to defeat this Florida Panthers team on Tuesday night. It doesn't happen often at home, because they've only lost 3 times all season on home ice.
Wow.
So what what do you think is how do you think the Florida Panthers have to defeat the Nashville Predators? What is the key before we give our in-game predictions?
So I think Nashville does their best. They play their best when they play kind of the buzzword around here is identity. When they play to their identity, it's a hard forechecking team. It's very physical play. Coach John Hines always talks about we want to be a team that's hard to play against. If you interrupt that, and to do that, really, it means a game played with speed and odd man rushes, which is pretty much a nightmare for us as we face off against the Florida Panthers. But if you play a game with speed, if you take advantage of odd man rush opportunities, it really interrupts Nashville's ability to play their style of hockey. And that has been a real problem for them. And that's something that I think, unfortunately, may be easy for Florida to capitalize on. It's reassuring that we have UC Saros in net, because when we give up those odd man rushes, he really has done a great job keeping the team in games by being able to play well in net against something like that. But really, if the Nashville Predators can't quite find their physical, hard forechecking game, it's going to be a long night for Predators fans.
Mhm. Yeah, and what a big swing it would be for Nashville if they can break their losing streak on the road against
Huge.
Florida. And the Nashville Predators are also going to be on the spotlight on Saturday night when they play a Stadium Series game against Tampa Bay. I'm sure you know who I'm rooting for in that game for sure.
I I would hope. I would hope so.
Yeah, but it's a little obvious. But I'll be definitely keeping eyes, especially because Florida will be playing an afternoon game against Edmonton, so I won't have a Panthers game to watch definitely that night. So, and who wins on Tuesday night?
Look, we need Nashville to break this losing streak, because like you said, they've got Dallas on Thursday, Tampa Bay following Saturday. We are going to have to break this losing streak. I'm you know, honestly, I think probably Florida's going to win it. I think it's going to be a good game. I think Nashville will have to play probably some of its best, most consistent hockey if they want a chance to win this game. I think this is going to be about a 4-3 game. I hate to say it, but I think Florida may take it.
Mhm.
I'd like that not to be true. On the
Mhm.
record, let me say.
Of course. The last 2 crossovers that I've done with Jared Ellis of Locked On Hurricanes and Seth Topal of Locked On Wild, I actually picked the Panthers to lose both those road games, and ended up being wrong on both of them. But for numbers wise, usually
Mhm.
Saros, because I don't want to factor wins, because wins there's different variables in the wins for
Right.
goalies. So better numbers wise, goals against average and save percentage, UC Saros is having a better season than Sergei Bobrovsky. Spencer Knight hasn't been recalled up yet from AHL Charlotte. He's likely going to be recalled during this homestand. It doesn't look
Mhm.
like it's going to be on Tuesday against Nashville. But I think that with the Florida Panthers, I think they're going to come up with a win in this one. I'm going to say 3-2 in this
Mhm.
one, as they have gone almost over a month since their last home game. Of course, different factors of the Olympic break, 5 road games in between, but this is a place that they're very comfortable in, and they score quickly as well at home as well. So I'm going to say it's going to be a 3-2 Florida Panthers win. And maybe it could be 4-2 if it's an empty netter at the very end, but I'm going to say 3-2 win for the Panthers. And if the Florida Panthers can stop the power play as well from the Nashville Predators, because the power play for Nashville, I mean, I'm seeing just right now the percentage, they're 9th in the NHL.
Yes.
If they can just stay out of the box and just learn how to stop the Predators in that front, then they'll find a way to win the game, because penalty kill is actually one of the things that gets to the Florida Panthers at time,
Mhm.
that helps other teams either make games closer or sometimes even win. But I'm gonna say the Florida Panthers win this one 3-2.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be a close game. I think it's gonna be a good hockey game. I think it's gonna be a close game.
Mm.
You know, we'll see how it all pans out.
I never predict blowouts. That, by the way, I just can't. So
Yeah.
I just think this one that's why I always predict close as well.
Yeah.
But hey, they're a bubble playoff team for a reason, and they're looking to definitely be motivated in order to continue their quest to make the playoffs. I mean, they've made it
Yep.
last year, regardless of whether it was a COVID season or not. So that they'll definitely be highly energized as they. I mean, now the Florida Panthers they're at the point in their season where they're getting everybody's best shot.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
that they have a
Yeah,
target on their back for sure, and I
for
can
sure.
acknowledge that. But and thank you so much for doing this crossover edition with me, for the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast and Locked On Predators crossover. Um, Tell my followers where they can find you on the internet.
You can find my work at ontheforecheck.com, and I'm on Twitter at ANK_Mama on Ice.
And for the people on the Nashville Predators feed, they can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. And one last time, once again, for everybody listening, please listen to the final episode of Olympic Hockey Daily with Ann Kimmel, Rachel Donner, and Erica Ayala, because I cannot say it enough how many I can't say it enough times how great of a job they've done. So thank you once again, Ann, for doing this.
Thank you very much.